September 13th, 2023 meeting of the Maitland City Council and soon to be Maitland CRA. If you would, please remember to silence your phones and fill out speaker cards if you would before coming up to speak so that we can make sure we know who you are, and it will help us arrange the minutes afterwards. And we have speaker cards out in the lobby. We also have speaker cards up here at the podium when you want to get up there and speak. They're simple to fill out. We just need your social security number, and it's fine. If we could begin the evening with a moment of silence, I'd appreciate it. Just join me, please. Thank you. Now, would you join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll head straight into the public hearing, our first public hearing, the only public hearing today. Laura, would you please read the ordinance?
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 1422, an ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, amending the official zoning map as part of Article 1 of the Maitland Land Development Code by changing the zoning classification of 4 properties located along South Lake Destiny Road. Further described herein, from residential single-family 1 district, RSF-1, to Westside Research and Technology, WS-RT district, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Dan, would you please introduce the item for us?
Absolutely. Good evening, Council. As you recall, the applicant is C Consultant GmbH from the ITS USA branch. The location is the west side of South Lake Destiny Road and I-4, just east of Lake Hungerford. This is a 1.26 acre site consisting of 4 parcels with existing 2 dwelling units on there. And the request is to go from RSF1 to Westside Technology so they can put their United States corporate office headquarters here. Just as a quick reminder, it's just above the Eatonville-Maitland boundary, and they, in accordance with the Land Development Code, they had their community meeting back in May. DRC found it in compliance on August 2nd with unanimous recommendations. September, P&Z gave it a unanimous recommendation, and on October 9th, Council introduced the proposed ordinance and set the public hearing date for October 23rd. On the 23rd, it was continued until today, or tabled until today. So staff is recommending Council adopt the ordinance 1422 for the site-specific zone map amendment on 801 South Lake Destiny Road. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant's here as well if you have any questions for them.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Mathis? Is there anybody from the public who would like to address this item? Now would be the time. Okay, let's close the public comment period. If there's no further discussion, the motion would be in order.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1422 for site-specific zone district map amendment AZS 2023-002, 801 South Lake Destiny Road.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Lauren, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Guthrie?
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Wurzel? Aye. Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Congratulations. All right, we are going to recess the City Council meeting and convene the Maitland Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. And the Maitland Community Redevelopment Agency is made up of the Maitland City Council plus 1 special person designated from Orange County, and this is Teresa Garrett tonight, to make up our entire Maitland CRA. So let's convene the meeting. Mark, do we have any old CRA business?
No, sir.
Okay. We have a CRA consent agenda. Does anybody wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Okay. Let's move on to the public comment period for the CRA. Does anybody have any public comment on consent items number 2 or 3 in the CRA? Okay, let's close the public comment period, and a motion will be in order.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda for the CRA.
Okay, the motion.
Second.
A second. Lori got it first. Councilperson Wurzel. First, or motion and second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Member Guthrie?
Aye.
Member Hall Harrison?
Aye.
Member Wurzel? Aye. Member Wild?
Aye.
Member Garrett?
Aye.
Chair Lowndes?
Aye. Okay. Adopting the consent agenda. Now it's time for the public comment period, public period for the CRA specifically. Does anybody have any comment for the CRA? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and adjourn the CRA meeting. And thank you, Member Garrett, for joining us this evening. And we'll reconvene the council meeting, the city council meeting. Mr. Regenstein, is there any old business?
No, sir.
Okay, we have a lengthy consent agenda tonight. Does anybody wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? All right, they all stay. Does anybody of the public have any comments on items 3 through 14 in the consent agenda this evening? Well, seeing no public comment, let's close the public comment period and bring the consent agenda back up here for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And a second. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wurzel?
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie?
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes?
Aye. Okay, we've adopted the consent agenda for the city council. Let's open the public period. This is the public period where anybody who has anything to comment on that's not specifically on the agenda tonight, it's an open public comment period. Anybody like to address the council or the public in general? Okay, let's close the public comment period, and we have a couple of decision items to make.
So easy.
All right, first is Uptown Maitland Lot 2, declaration of restrictions and the agreement in the Fourth Amendment of such. Mr. Mathis, would you take it away?
All right, Mayor, as a reminder, the property is located behind 400 North development or Publix, basically off of George Avenue, just to give you a kind of a perspective of where this is. Be a little bit more detail here on the background. So back in 2003, council approved a developer's agreement for the Uptown Maitland, and it was set to expire in 2013. So prior to the 2013 expiration, the property owner entered into a declaration of restrictions and covenants applicable to Lot 2, which was undeveloped at the time, and it held in place many of the requirements that were in existence of the developer's agreement. So it outlined all the entitlements that were approved. In 2015, there was the First Amendment to the declaration, which added 1,286 square feet to the Lot 1, and it took that off of Lot 2. Fast forward about 6 years, in 2021, the Second Amendment came in. A new owner purchased the property and intended to put a fitness center and gym on there. So he did an amendment to allow for a fitness center and gym to also be included with the entitlements, and also changed the height from 1 to 5 stories. The original approval was 3 to 5, so it got changed to 1 to 5, and then it allowed for different parking ratios. The following year, a third amendment came in because there was, during the site plan approval process, there was some geotechnical conditions that were discovered that made it very difficult to develop that property. So he redesigned the buildings to add a third floor and raise the buildings on pilings with ground floor parking underneath it. The existing architectural and design form standards changed as well, which were part of the declaration. The declaration included the elevations of the property or the development. So what the request is tonight is to replace the existing architectural form and elevations that were on Exhibit E of the declaration of the Third Amendment with the new elevations, the proposed elevations reflected in this Fourth Amendment. Again, there's no change in the entitlements of what they're trying to do as far as stories, square footage, or anything like that. It's just the elevations. So here's a slide, a copy of what the Third Amendment elevations are currently approved and what the proposed elevations are. He's going to a single-story office building, a series of office buildings, single-story. And with that being said, staff is recommending council approve the Fourth Amendment, the declaration, restrictions, and agreement, and basically approving the building elevations. The applicant is here. If you have any questions for him or myself, that concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions of Dan? Or about this item generally? Applicant? Okay, well, let's open the public comment period on this. Does anybody from the public have any comment on this item this evening? All right, seeing none, let's close the public comment period. If there's any further discussion, we can have some, but not a motion to be in order.
I think it's probably more desirable to most people than the Third Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment's one of my favorites when we're talking about the Constitution, so I'll make a motion to approve the Fourth Amendment to the Declaration of Restrictions and Agreement for Uptown Maitland Lot 2.
You have a motion?
I'll second that.
And a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wurzel,
Aye.
Councilmember Wild, Councilmember Guthrie,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison,
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, approved. Our next item is one that's going to take probably some time to discuss. Mark, this is about the funding of the new Maitland Public Library and Park project.
Nope, you jumped the gun a little.
All right.
I was like, why is this going to take so long?
I'm scared there for a second.
Oh my God, right. Moving right past the permitting fees. All right. We're going to amend our permitting fees, or we may not. I don't know. We'll see. Have Dan introduce the item.
Okay, thank you. You had me scared there for a second.
All right. Sorry about that.
So why we're doing this? So Florida statutes, section 553, authorizes owners of a property, or their building or structure, or their contractor, to hire third-party review services for building code as well as inspection. So it gives them the right to hire their own private provider services. The statute applies only to the building code itself. It does not apply to planning, zoning, or fire reviews. But what the statute also does is it says that the municipality must reduce the permit fee by the amount of cost savings realized by the local government agency when they retain that private provider services. So currently our adopted fee schedule, when it comes to the majority of the building permits, it's based on a percentage of the total construction value. So when a permit comes in, they get charged 0.25% for the processing, 0.5% for the plan review fee, and 1% for the inspection fee. So for example, if you had a new single-family house, a $500,000 house, you'd be looking at a total of $8,750 for the review fee. Currently, we were taking, if someone wanted a private provider for the plan review, we would just eliminate that portion of the fee. And same thing with inspections, we would just eliminate that portion of the fee, so we were getting 0% of it. But with the adoption of the land development code, it involved a little bit more planning review side on the building permits, now that we have the sustainability standards and a few of the other standards as far as architectural designs and things like that. We spend a little bit more time on that. So what we did is we wanted to go and look at what would be a fair fee for the city to charge for that. So what this proposed change does is it repeals and replaces the original resolution in place, which is 9/2020, and it basically adds the language that says, if you're having a private provider, then we'll reduce 50% of the applicable fee, whether it's plan review or inspections or a combination of thereof. So the way the statute reads is that if you elect to use a private provider for plan review, you have to use them for inspections. But you don't have to use them for plan review, you can just go through the inspections. So what this proposed resolution does is it takes off 50% of whichever portion that they're going to use a private provider for. And it also cleans up section J1, which is special fees for public records requests. And the reason we're doing that is because that in this resolution, in the current resolution, it refers to a different resolution. So all we did for the cleanup is we added as amended from time to time. So if that other resolution ever gets amended, we don't have to go back and change this one also. It will automatically change. So just as a example of the proposed fee of that same $500,000 house, if they went private provider on the review fee and the inspection fee, it would drop it down to $5,000. So it would drop the review fee in half and the inspection fee in half. So staff is recommending that council adopt the resolution 19/2023 repealing and replacing ordinance 9/20 or resolution 9/2020, amending the schedule of construction related fees. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Does anybody have any questions about this? Dan?
No, I knocked it out with Mark earlier. We kicked it around for a bit, so.
Okay. All right, does anybody from the public have any comment on this fee reduction?
Just a quick clarification, if you don't mind.
Right, we can catch it on the microphone if we can get up here, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
First meeting for you.
Right. Okay. And just make sure the green light's on it. It should be on.
Your name and address.
Your name and address.
Chris Pelletier, 3 West Ventures. Just so what that does is that gives the private sector some cash, but it takes money from the city or from the state. It's city.
It takes money from the city, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
just that's all. That's just a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pelletier. Okay, anybody else? Comment or question? Okay, seeing none. Let's bring it back to council for discussion. If there's no discussion, item would be in order.
Move to adopt the proposed resolution repealing and replacing Resolution 9-2020, amending the schedule of construction-related permit fees.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
And a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Worthall.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison. Aye. Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, now on to the long-awaited cost and funding of new Maitland Public Library and Park project. Mark, would you like to take us through it?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. First, I wanted to start with sort of a follow-up from the last meeting. There was some discussion on, obviously you made the decision on the architectural style you preferred for the library. So that has been done. But there were some comments on the site issues, specifically related to how parking was proposed adjacent to the Art and History Center. So what we told you is we'd have the design team take a look at some alternatives from a parking standpoint to free up that area. So sort of on short notice, they were able to put together a couple of concepts to show how parking could work here. So as a reminder, this is the site plan that we saw at the last meeting. This is the area in question here that was a concern adjacent to the event pad and Germain Marble Building, which is right here at the Art and History Center. To look at other options, there are basically two options we discussed. One would have a wraparound driveway that would connect Ventris to Packwood, and another one that would keep the open plaza at the front of the building. So to accomplish those, HBM has put together this as concept A. What this concept does is maintains the plaza opening into the front of the library and shifts that parking over to the east a little bit to free up that space adjacent to the Germain Marble Building with just a minor reduction in the number of parking spaces. So this would be an option that we could consider as we move forward with the process. Alternatively, in order to meet the criteria of having that connection between Ventris and Packwood, HBM put together this concept, which would maintain the parking that serves the park right now along the railroad tracks here, expand the parking field that's a little bit to the north, have that wraparound driveway tie into the existing parking field to the west of the building to accomplish the same thing, remove the parking area from south of the event pad and the Germain Marble Building to free up that space. As we talked about in the last meeting, we don't really need a decision here. What we were just asked to do is determine if there were options. If there were options, to bring them back. So there are options. We would certainly refine these as we would, if we move through into the second phase, where we're working on a more refined design for the library building itself, through the public involvement process for the next phase of the project, work through these designs and refine them as we move to a final set of construction plans. So, no questions there. I can move on to sort of the meat of it tonight.
So I guess my one question is on this B, I mean, we've kind of, the whole concept was to get this beautiful view of coming in and seeing the park, and, I think now that view is kind of taken away with parking spaces, though, correct?
It depends on which way you're looking.
Consider that. Just don't turn. Don't turn your head. Everything's all right.
Yeah, from that, on this one though, you have a parking field just to the west here on this one. This one keeps the parking field to the west a little bit, but shifts it a little more to the south. And this one shifts the primary parking field back to the east. So whether there would be a parking field here or here, you still have the view out of these windows out onto the park area.
Was there any discussion, or did they talk to you at all about, double level parking, two-story parking at all?
No, we didn't go into that level of detail. We only had basically a week to turn this around. So in terms of some design and ramping and things like that, there really wasn't a lot of time to turn around anything in much more detail than we have here. But again, you're not approving anything tonight. The meat of the design for the site and the refinements to the actual building would occur as.
Could we just ask them? I mean, what would the cost to cost it out? Just give us some info if we did a two-story parking garage, so we don't have so much impervious surface. I mean, even if we didn't have the impervious surface, that stormwater pond would probably either go smaller or it would be a dry pond. So could we just ask about that? Just get some numbers and see the possibility of doing it.
We can always ask. We are at the end of this phase of the project, though, so there would likely be a change order involved. So I'd have to ask them if they could do it within the current budget. If not, they'd have to put a change order together that I'd have to bring to you because it would exceed my authority for spending if that's something you want to see.
So what, on your thought, what the amount of the change order would be?
I have no idea.
I don't know that at this point, I think that's premature. And I would, just to look at it more, I'm not a big fan of having the road in front of the building on this concept B, but I think we should sit on asking them to do anything further. I think the point of the exercise was, is it possible?
Yes.
It's possible. it has consequences if that's the preferred route, but it is possible. And I was out, I'm sure on Saturday, there was an event, I think at the, at that tent, and I could see walking through it. I actually walked through just to see, and I can see how potentially having parking right along it could, how that interaction could be problematic. So I get it, but I think at this point, there's not much we need to do except just keep it all in mind. That's my opinion.
And I would also think that the stormwater pond is only showing in blue on these, and I think we're probably headed to a general recognition that it's not going to be a wet pond, so what's blue there is going to be green.
Yes.
It's not an aesthetic feature.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, you would still have that, you know, the swale to it, that big.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
If you got more apartment, it would swale because you can't really put anything in there, maybe a tree or something.
Yeah, no, it'll be green space, whether it's going to be level green space or
Yeah.
not. And just, Vance, just so I understand, even if we don't do it, what part of the area would you be thinking sort of two-level garage?
And I think it was best, was shown on the very first one that we had. Yeah, so I would just take this L part on the west side, and then just the other two, make that into double level parking.
Okay. Okay. All right. And, you know, I think it's also probably premature to start costing it out. I think we can probably get a good idea. I mean, from people in the community who do these things, I mean, we could get a big ballpark number of what it would cost to, I mean, it's, as I understand it, it's $20,000 a space to do apartment structure. So, anyway, so, all right.
We're gonna do it once, let's make the best.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No?
Okay. And moving into the decisions for tonight, as we discussed the last couple meetings, tonight we want to talk a little bit about financing in terms of review of the funding sources that are potentially available for funding a new library, looking into financing options and how those look in terms of the actual cost of principal and interest payment, what that looks like in terms of millage rate, and then what that would also look like in terms of the cost to an average homeowner on an annual basis. We look to hopefully have City Council provide some direction to staff regarding the funding sources and the financing options. Then we want to go into, if we can get through this portion of it, go into ballot language and how the wording on the ballot would be phrased if there's going to be an ask of the residents. So just to recap where we were at the last meeting, in terms of funding, we have 3 existing sources that we could put funds toward a new library. The first is the City Council Capital Fund designation. That is made up primarily of the federal funding that came to us during the early stages of COVID. So we have that money available to us. We also have repayment of advance of the CRA. The Community Redevelopment Agency, which is our downtown redevelopment agency, took a loan from the general fund early on to fund some extensive capital projects in the downtown. Not actually at the time wondering whether the CRA would be able to pay that back with the redevelopment that has occurred within the downtown Community Redevelopment Agency. That is now making money and repaying that loan. So in next budget year, they are due to pay back the city $3.1 million, which will close out that loan that was provided to them. And we also have potential for $800,000 in park impact fees, which would be coming in, assuming that the Maitland West apartments are funded or are approved this year, the building permits approved. They would owe us just a little over $800,000 in park impact fees. So we have $12.3 million that are available from these funding sources. The estimated cost of the new library is provided by HBM is almost $19 million. So that leaves sort of the difference between the funds available and the cost to fund the library in question. One of the discussions that occurred at the last meeting was the potential for the reuse of the existing library. Our architects at HBM had put those costs together initially to, as you may recall, to finish that off in the top end of architectural finishes. That was about an $8 million project. When the city council asked them to come back with more realistic numbers for a nice finish or for potentially demolishing the newer sections of the library and keep the older section of the existing library, but still finish it out in a nice fashion. It was about $4 million. So if sort of as we're working through the process, I think a good place to start would be to talk a little bit about how much money we would want to set aside for that from the funds available. If we can come to a determination on that, we could then know the pool of money that's available for us to use to fund the remainder of the project, which would dovetail into this table that you're familiar with from the last meeting. At the last meeting, we had funds of it. We projected financing of the project for $15, $20, and $25 million at the last meeting. After we discussed it for some time, the City Council asked us to come back with options for funding in the $9 to $15 million range. So that's what we put together here, just to sort of give you the lay of how to remind you how this table works. This is the current rates we would have at 20, 25, and 30 years, depending on the financing route that we would take. At the 9, 11, 13, and $15 million range, the number in yellow is the principal and interest payment. It would be an annual payment that we would put towards that borrowing. The number in gray is the equivalent millage rate it would take to make that principal and interest payment. And then the number at the bottom is the number that a $500,000 house would pay annually to service that debt. So you can see that ranges from, on the low side, $9 million at 5% for a 30-year loan, at 0.14 mils, $585,000, approximately $71 a year for that $500,000 house, up to, at 20 years, 4.5% interest, a little over $1.1 million in debt service, which would be equivalent of 0.27 or 28 mils, and have $139 per year for that, annually for that $500,000 house. So sort of run everything out for you. I've included on this slide the actual cost for the new library and park in the lower left-hand corner and the funds available. But in order to get to where we would like to, or at least I would like us to get tonight, I think it would probably be first worthwhile discussing if there's going to be money set aside for the existing library, how much that would be, so we could work backward from that to see how we would then disseminate the available funds. But it's really at the pleasure of the City Council.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. So we have made, it sounds to me, we haven't made voted decisions on these things, but the decision seems to be narrowed down to what we would borrow for the new library, and taking into account future costs for rehabilitation of the old library once it's moved out of, and then we have the basic three pots of funds that are available for us to pay for this with cash without having to go out for bonds. And as a general matter, I think we have a better chance of success if the lower we hold the bond number down to. It's not a given that we're going to go out and pass a bond. There's a lot of people who might take a lot of convincing in the community that this is a worthwhile project to begin with. So, you know, there is some convincing to do. A lot of people in this room, a lot of people up here are very excited about the library, and I think we'll do our best to convince the rest of the community when it comes to that. But I think we do ourselves a favor if we kind of keep the borrowing to a minimum. And given that we're in a pretty advantageous place, we have 12.3 million available. If we wanted to spend it tomorrow, we would just say, okay, the new library is going to cost $20 million. We have $12.3 million, and we only need to borrow $7.7 million to get the new library. That would be the bare bones, just taking that math right there. So 7.7 seems to me the minimum we would need to borrow to get there, and then we would draw down all the ARPA money, draw down the advance of the CRA, and draw down the park impact fees. And I know, you know, we've had discussions about this, and there are opinions about how much we would set aside and what funds we would set aside. And I think we talked about saving aside a couple million, $3 million, $4 million for the future library, so we don't have to go back out and try to borrow it again, which I don't think we would do. But set it aside for now for future design and construction and rehabilitation of some parts of the old library. So those are my thoughts generally about how to frame the discussion. Is, you know, we are at 20 million roughly. I'm saying 20 million. It was 18.7. You know, I think that we're in an environment now where we can expect construction costs and design costs to increase. And also, we should keep in mind that the borrowing is done in series of bonds, and so it's not all done in one fell swoop. We don't go out for one bond of 20 million. I think we go in and get the authority to borrow that, whatever the amount we want to do, and then we borrow as much as we need up to that amount over time in series of bonds. So those are my thoughts. Does anybody else want to chime in?
I think one of the key takeaways that I took from our workshop a few weeks ago when we met first thing in the morning and talked about this for a good long time, and I think we kind of got to a pretty much closer place where we were all feeling like we were closer to consensus. One of the things that I took away from that was there was a sense of consensus that we don't want to leave the rehabilitation or the future of the old library building as a problem for a future council to have to deal with. And that in order for us to be not only fiscally responsible, but also to really wrap this project up with a bow and say we're not passing the buck, that involves us fully funding whatever it is that we are going to do with the old library as part of the contemplated project as a whole. And so while we may not be calculating that amount as part of the bond, ultimately all of the money is paying for the whole thing one way or the other, whether we're allocating it towards the cost of construction of the new library, or whether it's going to pay for the remodel or the tear down or whatever the future of that old library building is. Obviously maintaining and keeping and restoring the oldest part of the library, that is the historical part that everyone cares about. So my starting point, if we are going to, throwing out a bid, right, we're at an auction here, I would say I would want to start with a number of $4 million that is going to be put down on paper as that's our starting number for money that we are going to already have allocated to pay for the old library. And so I would like to start with that, and I would like to put that as ARPA money, only because it's the biggest pot, and it makes sense to draw from the biggest pot first and then work our way backwards.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay.
I agree, except I would put more, I would put at least 50% of the ARPA money towards the funding of the existing library. So I'm in, just because I think we've come to this number as 4 million, but that's sort of the lower, that's what we've asked for. We've asked for a low number, in my opinion, to get to oppose to the high number. So you had an $8 million number and now you got a $4 million number. If we just take the lowest number, I don't think we're setting ourselves up for success. So I would think a $4.5 million, $4.4 million number on that. And to John, your opening remarks, I don't know, no one knows how this is going to play out and how voters will view it. I do not think that, let's take the top line number at 4.5 for 20 years. You take the $11 million number versus the $15 million number, you're $37-ish apart a year. I don't know that that's going to truly move the vote one way or the other. I just don't think that that's going to be the biggest issue for people who are going to vote. And so I think that the better way to communicate this to voters is that we're not setting ourselves for any financial distress by passing this project. I think if people dig into it and ask a lot of questions and they say, where are you getting all this money to fund this $18.7 million library? Why do you only need X? And we say, well, we're taking it from here and we're taking it from there, and I think that potentially asks more questions than just saying we voted for the option, we supported the option that costs $37 more a year, for 20 years. I think I think that sets up the question in a way that is more representative of what the facts are on the ground.
Okay, so just so I understand it, Lindsay, you wanted to dedicate 4 million
At least.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with Mike. I mean, the more the better, but I think that that's at least as a baseline to start with from where our conversation ended during the workshop.
Yeah. And Mike, you were at 4.5 for the same thing?
4.4, 4.5. It's
Okay.
and I don't think we should touch park impact fees on this project that aren't there yet, and I know they will be most likely, but I don't think that. And I know we've got somebody stopped me on a walk yesterday saying he heard that a study flyer came out about a park need study, but he didn't get it, so he wanted to put his thoughts in about what was needed for parks. I know that feedback is coming, and I know there's going to be projects that we want to take on to respond to a study that we did. And it wouldn't be great, again, in this story to say, yeah, we sent out this flyer to ask you what you want to do, but we don't have the money to do it. So that to me doesn't sound the best way to do it.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll chime in, if you don't mind. I went to Jersey Mike's today. Got a nice tuna fish sub, bag of chips. It was more than $13. And the point I'm making is we're asking everybody to, just for $13. And I would suggest we ask for up to the 15 mil. Because at 18, I kind of had a question. So I'll come back to that. I want to just share something. 2 weeks ago, I was at our Metro Plan Advisory Board Commission meeting, and FDOT was there, and they were giving pricing on making highway. And it said in 2021, to do a 4-lane highway, 1 mile of a 4-lane highway was $5 million. Okay, 2022, it jumped up to 6.2 million. And in 23, that same 5-mile highway is now like 7.3 million. So the cost of things are going up and up, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to be closer to the 20 million range. So I would definitely go out and ask for up to 15 million. And then, you know, I agree with Mike, we don't touch the park fee, leave that alone. I don't want to handcuff that 4 million to just what's left of the library. I mean, if we need to use it for something else, I want it to be available. I want it to be dedicated to that, but still available if we need it for anything that comes in. So that we don't foresee, say, a run over on the price of a new library or whatever it be. So, but yes, that's where I'm at.
Good. Thank you. Laura, do you have any?
I agree on the 4 million. I think we seem to have an agreement on that as the last meeting, and it seems that we're in the same place. As to park impact fees, as I said last time, I don't have this, I would be inclined to use it, but understanding where the votes are up here from what I'm hearing this time and last time, I would propose also kind of coming to taking that off the table so that we can get closer to a consensus on that. Since I can tell that is obviously something that's a very principled thing for many of you. When it comes to the rest of it, I always like, and I always ask Mark for like the real numbers, the real impact on regular people. Generally that's in a situation where I know how I want to vote in principle, I know what I think is right overall, but I want to be aware of the real impact on people. To me, the situation is different because out of principle, I don't agree with saying, oh, well, it's only this much, and therefore to justify something that I'm not otherwise principally aligned with, which in this case, I think is, we have the money. I don't think to say to use everything, again, taking park impact fees out of it, that we have either towards the existing library or the new library is somehow emptying our coffers to put us at risk of financial ruin. And I think that's hyperbolic, and I do put trust into our staff who has prepared these numbers as numbers that they feel we can responsibly utilize for this project if we choose to do so. Obviously, none of us know, and we all agree on that too, like what the voters would care about, and I think all of us, if we did know, would probably be willing to compromise in those directions, and I think that's part of the issue. But I do know that only a few months ago, when we were raising the millage for our annual taxes, that we had several people come in here at numbers that were smaller than some of these and tell us how much of an impact that would have on them. And that was for things that we knew that we had to do, you know, and so it was easier for me to say, well, I know that we have to do those things. Whereas when we have the money and we're going to go to people, and I haven't heard a good reason why not, other than the park impact fees, to use it, I have a hard time agreeing with going to the voters for more than I feel we have to. And so I do have a hard time with that, again, taking park impact fees out.
I get you, but let me just say this. So if you've got 15 million on of what we would go ask for, and then let's say you took all of the city fund money at the 8.4, you're at 23.4 million. You've got, so that's sort of if you added those two together. The cost of the new library and park is listed at, right now we think 18.7. We've said around 4.5 to rehab the existing library. You add those two up, you're at 19, you're, I mean 23.2-ish, just on those numbers. So to me, what you're providing for, if you ask for the 15, you potentially are putting it all in because the 3.1 is there potentially as a cushion. If you reduce it to even 13, you've got no cushion left. You've got no, if you want to go and, let's say that during the design, you want to add some amenity to the park, or you want to add, it becomes the structured parking does make some sense. It's going to cost $1.5 million to put a parking deck, whatever, I'm just throwing out numbers. You have given yourself no cushion to make any enhancements to the project without having to potentially dip in and do other things. So I think that the way to look at this is by going for a $15 million number, you're actually giving yourself the best ability for the project to be what we would want it to be without having to make sacrifices in other areas. That's how I see it.
You know what, I have great faith in all the supporters of the library going out and getting the message out to neighborhoods and neighbors and, you know, let it be known why we need a new library and the value of it and how inexpensive it will be to make a new library.
Well, I guess to follow up on Mike's point, the way that I feel like I've heard it phrased in terms of the difference between us asking for 12 versus 15, for example, is a difference of how much we're willing to take of the CRA and or COVID or parks money. But if it's an issue of, oh, we may take all of CRA and all of ARPA between the two different, you know, the existing library and that as a cushion, to me that's a different conversation, and I don't know, do we need a cushion? Is that something we should be planning for? What?
It's hard to tell with the way prices are going right now, but the numbers we have now do have a cushion built in. There's about a 30% contingency built into the numbers we have right now. As we go through the design process, we'll be able to reduce that. As the more design you get done, the tighter you get your numbers. So you get to a 60% plan, and you're dealing with about a 20% contingency, and then by the time you're in 90s or 100s, you're about 10% contingencies. There's contingencies all the way through. So those get, as we go through make it to the design process, as you work through the design process, that those numbers come into focus more. Unfortunately, we need to make a decision before that design process is done. But there are, to answer your question, there are contingencies built into the 18.7 number right now.
So we have what to do with the library, the existing library.
Yeah.
My concern is I do want it to be fully funded, and when it's framed that way, you know, then I have sort of a different perspective. When it's we want to ask for 15 million to ensure we're going to use all the money we have that is available, but we also want to ensure that we're not, you know, setting this up for some sort of halfway done library or something like that. But what I have an issue with is I feel as a principal that we should put forth the money that we have available as a good faith, you know, the council.
And I think that's showing that by saying that the 8.4 from ARPA is going to be used between the existing library and the new library, which is what we're really talking about. I mean, that's for all purposes. We can split it however we want, but by taking the 8.4 and saying a portion is going to be used for old and a portion is going to be used for new, and again, we can, future council can shift that money and allocation around, but we're not, in my opinion, we're just not limiting the potential for another project. I do think we've got a lot of projects, as Mark will tell you, in the works, and whether it be Independence Lane North or anything that may cost a little bit of money, or opportunities to provide an enhancement in the park, or like I said, or advance sees the structured parking, whatever that is. I think you're giving yourself the better flexibility to handle those.
Yeah, and you know, I was talking about the highway. That came in from anywhere from 17 to 26% increase that we're seeing with material costs on items. So yeah, a lot of projects we're doing might just come back a little higher priced at.
I also, I think that it's, first of all, it's important to remember one of the things that John said at the outset, which is that these are bond series. So we are asking the voters to approve the ceiling of the amount that we would be required. That's not, as we got clarification at the workshop, we're not asking for a loan in the full amount of $15 million, which is all dispersed at once and then we have to spend it down. It's more like having a bank account, and we can access the funds as we need them and as we go up. So if we do end up not needing the full amount, we're not obligated to borrow the full amount. But we've given ourselves that space and that room so that if we do need it, and you know, as Mike said, perhaps there is some amenity that as construction is going on, you go, wow, how did we not think of this? We absolutely have to have that. oh darn, we didn't plan ahead, we don't have any money left, now we can't have this thing, right? When I renovated my kitchen, and the one thing I wanted, and I didn't ask for it because I didn't think about it, and now I live every day staring at my kitchen going, that was the one thing that I should have fought for, and we didn't put it in, and now I'm stuck without it, you know? So, real life example here, right? Like, so, I think from that perspective, as much as it seems painful to, or difficult to justify, I think it's also the financially reasonable thing for us to do, which is to make sure that we have budgeted to be able to pay for the entire project. The ARPA money, you know, yes, in our conversations over time, we have talked about making sure that we were allocating all of that to the library, but that was because we didn't know what the library was going to cost. At one point, we weren't sure if we were talking 25, 30 million. We had no idea how much it was going to cost to get a new library. But Vance has made a very good point over our past several meetings, and one of them is that we have talked for years about needing a new parking structure. And if we don't spend all of the money right now, all of the ARPA money right now on the library, we have the opportunity to put out a bid to take that space, that empty lot across the street over there. We could actually get a design plan and figure out what we could do to put in a parking structure that the city owns, not depending on the other private enterprises in our area. We could actually have our own parking structure. And we're not going to be able to just come up with that money in our annual budget to be able to put that aside. It's just not possible, right? Because that's going to be an expensive project. Where would that money come from? Well, look, we have this money that we can set aside for other projects too. So fully funding the library's construction cost is a big ask, but it's also a very specific ask for a very specific task. And we do have other needs in the city that are large and expensive projects and are also on the residents' list of priorities, like having access to a parking garage, which we've promised our residents for years. So I would like to see us fully fund this to the best of our abilities, and I don't think the messaging is that difficult to say we are fully funding the project. We're not asking for an egregious amount of money in order to make some vanity project for our city. We're building ourselves a new library, which is going to be, you know, sophisticated but appropriately placed and is not going to be overly ridiculous. The price seems reasonable, and I think for the residents to ask for $139 a year, that does not seem like a tremendous lift, but you know, we have residents here, so I'm open to hearing some thoughts and opinions, but that's where my mind is at, is that I believe that the messaging should be we are fully funding the project, and if we don't use the full amount, then great, but at least we have it there available to us if we need.
I guess one other question I have, since you said it's a specific ask, when I'm doing the math that I'm doing it based on the numbers we've been given. When we're talking about a cushion, it seems we're pulling that number out of thin air. Why not give ourselves a $20 million cushion? I mean, I'm not sure where, I haven't heard anything that's saying science, and certainly staff hasn't said anything in terms of, other than that there is a cushion built into some degree. So that's part of my struggle. Where am I getting that from? If I am to justify it, to say, well, it's because we're fully funding it. The numbers don't add up, so where is that?
So I get it to add up in the sense that it's an $18.7 million new library. We've got a $4 million to $8 million, $7.9 million number to deal with the existing library. Even if you're on the low end of that, you're in the $4.5, $5 million range. If you add, for simple math, you add 5 million to the 18, you're at 23.7. You add 15 million plus the 8.4, you're at 23.4.
I'm not sure, you've lost me, so it wasn't simple math for those that are on a kindergarten level like myself, but
So
I just think if I take the amount that we have, it's 11.5 million that we would need extra. So that's taking 8.4, or that's taking 4 million, or 4.4 million and 3.1 million, and leaving the parking tax fees out. So you're... I'm not touching
the CRA.
Okay, well, so, but you're not saying that. So now you're saying that, but I didn't hear that before, so...
Yeah, I added 8.4 to 15, that's how I got to the 23.4.
Okay, So when you're saying a cushion, it's really just not taking CRA money is what that is. And that's why my number is 12 million and yours is 15 million, is it's the 3.1 CRA money. Which is fine,
I'm not saying the CR money is cushion. I'm saying I think you should say it's 8.4 is what is the participate. And
No, I'm just trying to identify the point of disagreement, and so that I can see if if we can come to a compromise. And so it sounds like from what you're saying, from what I'm hearing, or how now is that if we're 3 million off, which give or take, we're 3 million off of each other, because mine ends up at like 12 million, essentially going to the voters for 12 million, and you're saying 15, then the difference is that CRA money and whether or not to take the CRA money. But it's not really that we would have 3.1 million more to work with, right?
You are correct. I'm not saying what the ability though of not taking the CRA money at 3.1 is that. And look, this is all city money, right? This is all resident money. It's all city money. We're taking it from one to the other, and we're kind of just. What I'm saying is that 3.1 CRA money gives a future council the ability to either make a decision to add an amenity to the park or to the library, or to build a parking garage or do whatever, and not leaving that future council with a potential issue, which is that. And if it's a cost overrun, it's a cost overrun, but it's not eliminating the other needs that the city has, which I think parking is one of them. Anybody went to the.
No, I mean, that's a valid point of view. I just want to identify what the points of view are, and if that's the same, because I'm hearing the same overall conclusion from the three of you, but I'm not sure if the reasoning is the same. So I'm just trying to identify that, because if it doesn't really sound like my proposal theoretically versus yours would really leave us with any additional cushion for the library, it's really just how much of the money we're willing to take is still the issue. Is that where you, Lindsay and Vance, are as well on that?
So let's. I'm not sure what you're asking, but you go ahead if you want to jump in on.
I'm trying to think if there's a way to re-say what I just said without literally repeating myself.
Well, I mean, because when you guys are saying, to me it's confusing to say, we need a cushion, what if the project costs more, so on and so forth, and then you're talking about like a parking garage in a different area. So I'm confused by that.
So here's what I think, and while you're rethinking how you say it. Here's my thought. I'm not saying it's a good thought, it's just my thought, is that if you put all the money, I think the 0.8 park impact fees should be off the table, because I think we're going to have other park projects that we want to take. So if you look at the 8.4 and the 3.1, if you use all of that money and reduce down the ask to the voters, and there's either another capital project like a parking garage that the city wants to take on, or if there's a cost overrun that happens with the library and the park, where are you going to get that money?
What if the library costs more, there's a price overrun, and you've already started building a parking garage? I mean, any of these things can happen. But I think I better understand what you guys are saying now. So
it's taken 7 years to get to a library. I guess it would be great if we could move a parking any future capital projects quicker. But I think we'll know. I think as this thing goes, and I just think that if you go out, this is going to go out now. We don't have the definites on the cost. If you go out and then this thing goes more, you're looking at another tax increase to cover the cost. I think that's what I think we're doing. But
Okay. I have evolved on the issue of how much of the ARPA money that we should spend and how much of the overall money that is already sitting in our bank account, right, for lack of a better reason. The reason I have done that is because once we had an actual concrete set of numbers to look at, I mean, up until now, everything's been theoretical, right? And I said, yes, let's use all of ARPA money to pay for the library. that was because I thought it was going to cost an awful lot more to build the library, and because I thought that the burden on the residents to pay for that new library was going to be significantly more than what the numbers have borne out to be. So, working from the fact that these numbers here, to me, seem to be a much more reasonable ask, and a much, at least from my perspective, a much more reasonable ask. I think, given that, I am more inclined to ask for as much as we can reasonably get to, and I think we've all sort of settled that 15 million is probably the high end of what we're willing to go for. Because that seems to be still a very reasonable amount to put to the voters and say, this is what it's going to cost you on an annual basis for a brand new, beautiful library that is going to continue to serve our very special community, and knowing that having our own library over time is always going to be cheaper than joining Orange County ever will be. This is a very, very reasonable cost for the voters in our city in order to be able to have the amenity of a brand new library. With that in mind, that now in my mind frees up that ARPA money that I had previously thought, you know what, we're going to have to put all of this to the new library to make it affordable. Now that I'm looking at the numbers and going, this is a lot more affordable than I thought it was, that ARPA money was dropped into our laps in order to give us the opportunity to pay for projects that need to be paid for. And seeing that we can reasonably afford the cost of the library by getting a bond to pay for the majority of the cost, I am now, through conversations with residents, looking at other projects that are also on our list of things that are high-ticket items that should be funded as a one-time cost, as opposed to trying to budget in increments over many, many years to try and get it done. So that's where I'm at in terms of my thought process. How we get there with you know, the minutia over the numbers, I don't know. I mean, 13 million to me is fine, 15 million is fine. It's a level of comfort for the rest of us up here to have to get comfortable for ourselves as to what that number is that we are fine with. And then we back ourselves into how much money we're willing to take out of what we have as our available balance. It's just every time that we have to go and get a new project done, we have to budget for it. And then we have to make sure that we are paying for it. And if we can't pay for it for what we've already budgeted for, then we have to raise taxes. And so even though we haven't raised taxes in many, many years, we raised taxes once and everybody notices the one time we raised taxes. So here we are going, well, we're not going to be able to probably get away with raising taxes again next year and still continuing to fund everything, because everyone's going to say, well, you raised taxes last year. So I'm being sensitive to the fact that we have to work within our budget to pay for everything, but the special projects like a new parking garage, which we definitely know we need, whether we put it over next to the new library or we put it over here to deal with the fact that Independence Lane North is going to draw traffic, or we put it to, I don't know, one of Vance's sewer projects. But we have high-ticket items that are going to need to be addressed, and considering how much the library is costing us less than what I thought it was going to be, that's where I'm at in terms of why I'm willing to do what I'm willing to do with the money.
I think all that, from both of you, clarifies, my point of misunderstanding was, I thought, before I said that y'all were saying we would use the 8.4 and the 3.1 in various different ways or whatever, and we would still need a cushion to go for 15 million. That was a different conversation to me. So but I think that's been clarified. My number one, the only reason behind anything I'm saying is because of my desire that I know everybody shares to want it to pass and to want a new library for our community. And so, I want us to be as close to consensus. I don't always care about that. But I do want that because, again, I want this to pass. So.
Well, I think I would hesitate to get into too much forecasting about what our future needs are going to be about different things other than the library, be they garages or other things, because we do have a CIP. We do take care of these things. That's what, since time immemorial, that's what we do, and that's what all cities do. And I think, if we have a garage project, we can pay for a garage project in other ways. If we're going to start now forecasting our future garage with this money, I don't think that that's necessary because we have jury back. And we were worried when he got up and stormed out earlier. It's bad news when your accounts guy leaves the room discussing things like this. All right. Welcome back, Jerry. If there's a library, it's going to cost us $2 million, $4 million, whatever it is, we put it in the north lot. We have CRA money coming in for the future for that. I mean, that's exactly what CRA is for, to pay for those types of things. So CRA will pay for that. I guess we could probably bank on several $1 million of CRA money coming in the next 2, 3, 4 years. So that's available for that. I mean, that's a different idea. So I would set that aside. I don't think we need to worry about future garage and putting it into this. And as for the other items, I would say that the parks money, the trust fund it's a good thing to have, and I'm glad we have it. But realistically, we've been paying always for parks amenities with general fund money. We've had a parks trust fund, and whenever developers come in, we put that money aside. And going back for 20 years or more, we were trying to bank that trust fund up and build it up and build it up and build it up so we could buy a property on the west side somewhere. And that money just built up for years and years, and we never touched it because we were paying for all our parks improvements and all our parks, everything else we did with parks at a general fund. So that's something we can do. It's something we traditionally have done. So, to me, the parks money seems to be crying out to be spent on Quinstrong Park. But I'm sensitive to everybody else, or at least 3 other opinions here, which are that we shouldn't touch it. But even for that, for parks that for the items that we have for parks coming up, they're in the CIP. They're the things that we can think about. We are sending out a parks survey, and we're getting good ideas for park stuff. We're always building new trails. We're getting grants. We're doing, we're not standing still as far as parks goes. And I think, if we want to save some of that aside, we can save some of that aside. And I'm willing to compromise on that as well. And the other point I'd make is that borrowing money, there's a cost to borrowing money. So if we go out and if we set aside $1 million and decide we're just going to go borrow $1 million, borrow that $1 million somewhere else, we don't pay it back with $1 million. We pay it back with $1.5 million. Or there's a large cost to that. Mark, I think you and I were talking about earlier today on this. If we were to borrow, say, $9 million, how much would we pay back? I think we were talking about we'd be paying back something like $14 or $15 million.
Yeah. You want the exact number?
Um,
But yeah, because the top number in yellow there is our annual debt service. You'd be paying $691,000 back.
Yeah.
Over 20 years. So the cost of borrowing that $9 million would be just under $14 million.
So setting the money aside is not free. It comes at a cost that everybody else is paying the bonds off over time. So I think we ought to keep that in mind. But what Laura Wurzel says makes sense to me. I think she and I are approaching it the same way, and I'm having a hard time approaching it in a different way. And it's only a failing of my own, I guess. But if we're again, the math to me is we have 8.4, 3.1, and $0.8 million. So we have $12.3 million to spend toward a $18.7 million project. And Mike, you're right to say let's make that add 4 or 4.5 because we're going to put aside what it's going to cost for the future library to be renovated. But even there, if you take, let's just to do the math on this. If you have 12.3 million sitting there, and you have, let's call it 19 million. I agree also with Lori that the cushion's already built in. We have a 30% contingency here, so we already have. Hopefully, our consultant has done good work here, and when we say it's 18.7, it's going to be somewhat south of that. But let's call it 19 million or 20 million. If it's $19 million, we have we take the 12.3 off that, we're down, so we need to go out and find $6.7 million. If you can add to that back in the 4.5 million and the 0.8 million, and then you're back up in the range of, I think, about 12.6 million. And that seems to me that's a reasonable way to go about it. I don't know that we need to go out and ask for an additional $3 million because we think there might be some need for that in the future. And I think it's hard to explain to people why we need that much money, unless we're saying to them, we're not really going to touch the money we have on hand, we're ready to borrow. And then explain to them also that the borrowing is not cheap. So I would think we would come in closer to the $11-12 million mark, somewhere under the 13 million. And I get there by taking the cost of what the project is, holding aside $4.5 million plus, hold aside the parks impact fee, 0.8 million. What's left? And then what's left of that is what we need to go and ask people to burden themselves with.
So you think it's 12 and a half?
Yes.
And do you think, and I follow your logic, and it's I get it, but do you think from a passage standpoint that that number is going to be then around, and again, just for sake of comparison, we're taking the top line numbers, at the 4.5 or 20 years, you're talking about $110 a year versus $140 a year. When you talk to people, do you get the sense that would be determinative of the issue to vote for this or not?
I don't know that. I haven't asked anybody that question. And so no, in answer to your question, I don't know if that would be a determinative factor. But I would say that a lot of people, so there's going to be two different things going on here. One is what people see on the ballot, and one is what people are going to see in the education materials. Because the ballot's going to be a fairly stripped down version of what it is. It's just going to have the wrong number, 12 million, 15 million, wherever it is. And that's a meaningful number to people. And the lower it is, the most impact of that's lower. In the educational materials, yeah, you can go out and say, is it worth it? The difference between $92 a year and $102 a year to you, and people by and large are going to say no. I don't think there's a tipping point there where people will start saying no. It may be up to $140. They say,
right,
my God, I would never pay $140 for library services, no way. And they would say, yes at $86.
I've tried to ask as many, because this is a topic, obviously, when I walk around, when people ask me, talk to me about other things, the library comes up. I don't get the sense, and whether I'm right talking to Mark and I talk about this all the time, whether I'm talking to the right subset of the Maitland population or not, I don't get the sense. People are usually one way or the other on this issue. There's not a lot of, well, it depends how much it costs. I don't get a whole lot of that. And when I talk about cost and when I talk about, that doesn't seem to be the issue they focus on. It's either a yes or a no, pretty much from the outset. I don't get the sense when I talk to people that the borrowing of $2.5, because we're really not talking, under your math, we're talking about a difference of $2.5 million virtually. That issue alone would change their vote. That's not the sense I get. Now, again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. I have no idea. But I don't get the sense that that's what people would be focused on.
Right. Well, I guess in answer to that, partial answer to that anyway, and the reason I made a distinction with what the bond looks like and what the education materials look like is how many of the voters are going to be educated. I mean, how effective is the education material handouts, and how many people just walk into the polls and say, would you vote for a library for 10 million, yes, versus 15 million, no? I just don't know.
Right. Well, obviously, if you give them a vote, they'll vote for always the cheaper amount. But if it's library or no library for X amount, I think the answer is going to be largely the same. That's just based on the conversations I've had. I don't think the 12.5 versus 15 makes a difference. I do think, and it's interesting the way we look at the impact fees. I think if there are certain people that I talk to that if we said we're going to build a library, but you're not going to get X park amenity, they may say, I don't support that. There are my need in the city. I still have a want, I still have an interest, I still have a amenity that I want the city to provide, and it's not a library. I'm not gonna go visit the library, but I'll support the library, but not at the cost of not having the amenity I am also looking for. So that's the sense I get from people, but I don't
know that we are, I don't see the choice. I don't see why,
you take $800,000 away from a park impact fee.
right. And if
We have not,
When's the last time we used this?
the park. we
All
don't-
of it to
all
pay
of
for
it.
park,
Yeah.
for Fort Maitland.
When we had, well, and
We've done
also
plenty of other projects.
in Independence Square Park.
I mean, what John's saying is it's not really a fair thing to say, well, you know,
it's either a library or a
it's
park.
either a library or the very niche specific thing. I mean, we know half the people want a splash pad, half of them would be a dog park, and probably, we may not do any of that. I mean, it's a, what if the phrasing of the question was not, do you support a library at 11 but not at 15? What if the question was, what if you knew that we had the opportunity to contribute $3.1 million that's sitting there, but we chose not to? How do you feel about that, voters? What if that was how the question was phrased? I mean, we could phrase the question in a lot of different ways, and if people heard us saying, you know, if people are researching their vote and listen to this very meeting, they would know that. So I do think it's relevant, it's not just a question of can we get the number to the lowest possible because we're making ourselves poor just to get something to pass. It's that we have the money there. Our staff is telling us that it's there, that it can be used for this purpose, and we are talking about choosing not to do that because we say, it's really not that much for the voters, just make them pay for it. That's what I'm hearing, and I think that's what other people might hear were they to listen to this.
They are, but they're all paying for it. They're paying for it all, no matter what. That I think is the.
But the money's sitting there.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, I agree with Mike. I mean, I think there's people out there that, like me, I don't go to the library, I support the library, I love it, but you know what? Maybe I want a bike path going through here. Maybe I want, improvement at my local park. Maybe I want, something else. Maybe I want pickleball, thank you.
But it's not fair to frame it like they won't be able to have that if we do this. That's what I think John is saying, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's fair to frame it that, if you vote this way, you're not going to get whatever thing you want, that they may not get
But
anyway.
you know what, I think what we're saying also is you're holding off just $4 million, and then if we have overrun, if anything else, we can use it, and we're going to have to use it anyways for what's going to happen after they move from the library for the new library. And I know we can sit here and say, oh, well, we can make a fund for it and start funding that, and then in 5 years or 6 years or whatever, we'll have enough. And then again, we have the goodies sitting there, right? So I kind of see, all the way around.
But Mark,
it's not just or else, I don't think. Go ahead, sorry.
when we start talking about paying for parks out of the Park Trust Fund, 4 years ago, how much money was in the Park Trust Fund?
I would have to go back and look at the budget.
A couple $1 million, yeah, several $1 million.
Several million. And
Yeah.
and we used that Park Trust Fund to build Independence Square and then Fort Maitland, and then actually we ran out of money in the Park Trust Fund and then had to use general fund money to finish Fort Maitland.
Which is fine.
So,
And we got that
We
money,
agreed to
but-
take park impact fees off the table anyway. I mean, we've all compromised,
but we only get that money from when people.
I don't think
developers come in.
John's not there yet.
Well, I'm not there yet philosophically,
Yeah,
but
John's
what
not
I've
there.
done is and I heard John say too, he is willing to compromise on that particular piece, but the only reason I was willing to compromise on that particular piece, it doesn't make any more sense to me, frankly, than it does to John, because there's literally a park there, probably arguably the most defunct park in all of the city of Maitland, is the park that we are proposing to improve. So, I think in that sense, it doesn't make sense to me. The only reason I said I was willing to compromise on it is because it's the only one I've heard an actual justification logically from anyone for taking it off, other than these what I see as red herrings of hypothetical situations. So that was the only reason I was willing to compromise on the $0.8 million, not because my mind has been changed, but because at least there's a rationale.
See, and I can see it both ways. I mean, I can see it the way you're seeing it, like, all right, it's part of the park, this is park funds, let's do it. But the way I'm seeing it is, this is part of the project, and the project's being funded, so why don't you use that little bit of money? $800,000 is not a lot, to improve all the other parks that we have. How many other parks do we have? Another 20? So, I mean, don't throw it all into one project. I
But
mean,
you all
if
did
it's
that with
gonna-
Fort Maitland, that's what
No,
I'm
that's what
saying.
I'm saying.
I mean, I'm just saying, I did that with Fort Maitland, and now we have another park, and it may be the kind of thing, if we didn't touch Quinstrom, and we just did the library, that actually might kill this project, right? Like, if we just didn't touch it, and we just left it as it is, and we said, not to do the park, don't you think that that would probably be bad for the library proposal?
You would have to do the park.
Exactly. So that seems to me that we've decided that is a priority, that is a very important park project. So I'm having trouble differentiating that from Fort Maitland or any other park that we thought it was worth spending or emptying those park impact fees on. And anytime you take out money, and I'm going to leave a little here and a little here and a little here, it makes it harder for you to have any big purchases in your personal life or in the city. So but at least again, I just don't understand. Everything is, well, we might have this, we might have that, and I have a hard time sitting up here talking about it is just $3 million that we are asking the voters for. I think it's trivializing an amount of money that's important to them.
Pickleball's not important.
Well, here, let me just.
I actually I totally agree with you. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it is a lot of money. But that is the point of the whole exercise, is that this is a lot of money we're going out for. So I'm not trivializing the $2.5 million. I completely agree. It is a significant amount of money. I think though that what we're saying though is that there are other needs. Mark, when this property got purchased, what was the initial thought? What was going to go on that property?
Which property?
The doctor's office.
It was parking garage. That was the downtown plan, so.
Right. So when we initially purchased, when we talk about like long-term visioning and what we actually purchased that property for, it was for a parking structure. And it was because we knew that parking was going to be deficient. So I understand that we moved attention away, but I think it's consistent with the long-term vision that parking would be addressed. So anyway, that's.
Well, I would say one thing about putting a parking garage there, although I was around when we bought that property, the doctor's office, I mean, that was what we bought it for, was for parking. And if you look on the revisions tonight, a lot of that property would be for parking. So, I mean, and we have the flexibility to move around. I mean, what one council does doesn't, handcuff everybody else to the attorney for that. So we can use that property for whatever we think is the highest and best use right now. I mean, thank God we have that property, because it's now part of the library rather than part of the parking garage, right? And who here would rather see a parking garage in that corner than the library? I don't think any of us. Parking garage would go somewhere else. In hindsight, thinking about putting a parking garage there, what a disaster. I mean, what worse corner in Maitland can you think of than Packwood and Maitland Avenue, which is just rife with traffic problems right now? To say, everybody go park your car there and then see if you can get across the street and come on, it doesn't make any sense. But to the point of, we can't do anything with parks unless we have a parks trust fund. I mean, I can just go through the things we voted on tonight to carry forward to this year from last year, because we didn't get them done last year, which means we have the money, but we just didn't get them done because we didn't have project managers, or the project didn't get, for whatever reason, it got delayed. Sibilia Beach improvements for $126,000. Bike path, $960,000. I think that's the bike path across from Domrick to the Maitland Community Center. Lake Avenue Boardwalk bike path, $500,000. These are all, there's several more in here. This was tonight's carryover that we already voted on in consent agenda tonight. So we've got the money to do our park stuff. We've got plenty of money to do, because we have a staff that puts these things in the CIP. We vote on them, they go forward. I mean, but I don't want to get lost in the weeds about the park impact fees, because it really is just the smallest tadpole in that pond there. I mean, the bigger is the 8.4 million and the 3.1 million. I think the better approach, and Lori, I think, was getting at this, and rather than looking for the maximum amount that people would vote to to burden themselves with, let's look at what we need to build the project. And that's where I'm starting off. And, you know, this was, if we call it a $19 million library, it came in about where we expected it was going to be. I heard, you know, projections of it, oh, it might be $20 million, it might be $25 million, came in at $19 million, which is in the ballpark. And so it's what we expected. And now we have this money sitting there for free. This won't cost us anything to dedicate this money responsibly to a current project. It's free. If we go out and borrow $11 million, it's going to cost us, you know, millions of dollars to do that. I mean, it's just, and why would we do that? I'm still not quite clear on it. So I would say we start from the proposition of money in hand, cash on hand, which is $12.3 million. How much do we need to build this library? 18.7 plus 4.5, and go from there. I mean, that's, I really have a hard time seeing another approach. I don't want to put another parking garage onto the, I don't want to put the future, you know, museum on this. I mean, I think we have a library to get through here, and let's find out what we need, find out how much cash we have, and go ask for the rest.
So what's your proposal?
What number?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah, 12.6 was where I was at the next mark, right?
Right, so you're at 12.6, so we're really talking about, I'm not minimizing the number, I'm just trying to bridge the gap of any difference of opinion. I'm not saying even what mine is. So we've heard 15 million and we've heard 12, you're at 12.6, right? So you would go out specifically, your ballot referendum would ask for 12.6.
Yes. And in fairness, what would yours go up?
What's that?
What would yours go up if you were to ask?
I think, in reality, I think that the number is somewhere in the 12.6 to 15 number. I'm actually, that's what's interesting, is that I've heard, I do not believe that, I think the 0.8 is off. And I think in your 12.6 takes the 0.8 off. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're really talking about the difference between 12.6 and 15. And the question is that, do you think that you protected either a cost overrun, which you think you have, although I'm not there, just to be completely honest, I'm not there. We've got really preliminary designs that have given us these numbers, and we haven't fixed a site issue that I think you were talking about, John, about that you'd like to see the roads connect. I mean, there's a lot there. So I'm not convinced that with just the 18.7, we've protected the potential for cost overruns, even if you went with just the 12.6. So that's that.
And you bring, you know, a wealth of construction experience and development experience to this, so I'm happy to be educated on that. And I appreciate your view of that. So, I mean, you know where we are. You know what these plans look like.
Right.
What are they?
But even if we're at 13 million, I mean, I'm not opposed to, first of all, let me just say for this, I think whatever we put out there should be a 5.0 to give it the best chance of success. Right? If what we're trying to do is, so I do think that we should try to put something out there as a unified front. But I do think that, and so I follow the logic. I think you all made very good points. I've said, when I'm not trying to minimize the number, I just don't think that the number in and of itself is what moves the vote, more than just our genuine information about the project and the plan.
One, I gotta say, I love serving with 4 lawyers. There's always a good argument up here, as y'all can see. The other thing is, I think, you know, what y'all are talking about is, just doing the math in my head real quick between both of y'all, you're looking at $1.85 a month difference per household. And with that being said, I would love to open it up to the public and see what their thoughts are, so we can bring it back.
Can I just ask a math question?
What?
I hope you're not asking any of us.
Sure you're
I hope you're looking that
I
bad.
mean,
Or that bad.
would you like me to get my calculator up?
I got the math going over here.
Okay, I just want to understand, and I'm not saying I don't understand, because I just want to know the 12.6, John. Could you walk just once very linearly through how you got to that specific number, if you don't mind, please?
Okay. Let's see, I have to go back.
You did, I think you did 18.7 plus 4.5. Then I think you backed out 8.4 and 3.1. And that gave him roughly, I think, that math. I think that's,
Well, was it 8.4? I don't think it was 4.
well, you were, it's whether you add 4.5 to the 8.7 or take it away from the 18 to 8.4. It gets you to the same place. So I think, so you're at 18, you're at 18.7 plus 4.5.
Gets to 23.2.
Okay, then subtract out 8.4. Where am I? And then minus 3.5.
John, it seems
Well,
like
see,
that's
well-
3 from CRA instead of 4.
Yeah, actually, so I was at,
11.6?
okay, you take 8.4 plus 3.1 plus 0.8, you get 12.3,
Correct.
right? And if you say, if we go ahead and give it the cushion, 18.7 million was called 20, right? Just because we're at such a preliminary number here. And you take the 20 million, subtract the 12.3 we have together, you're at 7.7. Add to that the 4 million. you're
Four and a
taking-
half.
Yeah, well, I had 4, but yeah,
Okay.
okay, 4, and then add another 0.8 to that. And you're at 12.5.
It's the same math. It's the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like if you ever had to do your kids' math homework, and there's like 8 different ways to get to the same answer, but half of them don't make much sense to your brain.
Well, that's what I'm, yes.
Yeah.
This one doesn't make sense to my
Yeah,
brain.
so I went down to the bottom and I added
Okay.
all the ARPA, half the ARPA money, then all the market factors.
Okay.
Meaning subtracting.
That's
Not-
fine. I just was trying to figure out how to get there, so, okay. All right. I will ask the next question.
Well, that's why I can answer. Vance, you bring up a good point. Why don't we open it up to the public to hear from anybody who'd like to have a whack at this? Help us.
Now that they've watched this.
It's embarrassing.
It would be very helpful to hear from everybody who would. Well, let us know what you feel.
Good evening, council. Bill Randolph, 331 White Oak Circle, Maitland, Florida. A lively discussion. I think it's definitely one of those things that needs to be had. However, I would say in my walking around and talking to people about this, it's really the question of, do they want a library or don't want a library? I bring up the funding, and they really don't seem to care about that. They seem, one thinks that there's a need for it, and the others think there's not a need for it. So it's convincing, I think, the public really there's a need here. Whether it's 15 million or 13 million, I don't think they're going to split hairs on that. To me, it's about the same amount. Just getting to what the city manager was saying, that the architect, and again, these are conceptual plans. I mean, to put a number to this is really pulling it out of the sky. There's rules of thumbs, and I know there's people here that probably are more in tune with what the current square footage costs are. But if you look at just that contingency of 30% on the 19 million, you're looking at a $13.3 million library. That other amount of money is your contingency to cover those overruns. As far as the existing library, that's about 13,000 square feet. The consultant's estimate was $8 million to renovate that to a high standard. That was over $1,100 a square foot. The new library is only about $1,000 a square foot, based on that with the buffer. If you look at the old part of the library, you said the historic part and those 2 wings, it's roughly about 3,500 square feet if you kept the bookstore behind it. That's about $1,142 a square foot at $4 million. Where renovating the whole 13,000 for the $8 million was $615 a square foot. So I'm not sure what the rationale is in that square footage difference. Because I don't think demolition is going to cost you $1,200 a square foot to tear down most of that library and renovate that site. So I think there's a lot of fluff in some of these numbers, and there's a lot of swiftiness in other numbers. I would caution you, just like been said here tonight, the escalating cost of construction today, you just don't know what it's going to be. And we're talking not tomorrow, but 3 years down the road before this is actually funded and paid for and built. So I think you have to think about those escalating costs and make sure whatever you ask for, you're going to the well once. And the mayor is right. I mean, garage north of here or south of here, that's what the CRA was developed for. This park should have been paid for out of CRA money, not the Parks Trust Fund. You know, the CRA was established so you could use these tax dollars to improve the CRA, to attract more businesses here, more development. So I think, you know, some of these things that we paid out of general fund should be looked at other mechanisms that were already established to use for these things. Certainly a garage outside the CRA, you can't use those funds, but within this corridor you can. So I think personally, I think the $15 million number is the closer thing. You don't have to use it all, but I don't know the public's going to sit down here and read it and go, well, this is $13 million, I think I'd vote for it, but $15 million, you know, ultimately they're going to be incrementally paying for this in their taxes. And by the way, y'all get blamed for not just your tax increase, but Orange County's, St. John's, and everybody else. They look at that tax bill coming from Maine, not from 4 different entities. So just be aware that you're out there getting blamed for the other tax increases too, not just your own. I think y'all are, you know, getting there, but I would say I'd go with 15 million. Ask for as much as you need. You got one time at it, you don't have to spend it all, and that can be explained. You know, this is an up to amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I can't believe nobody else has an opinion in here, but there was.
Oh, there he is.
Mike Thomas, 816 Tuscarora Trail. We've been at this for how many years? And the library has 9,000 city residents as members, half the population. So let's just get this thing built. And I've been on a couple different referendums. Money matters, messaging matters, all that matters. You can't just say, well, let's do this and let's add that on, and let's just keep our eye on the ball and get the library built and not get. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Good evening. Stephen Lee, 1661 Apache Trail. I'm also the president of the Maitland Library Board Corporation. So Mike hit an important part. The number of residents that have a library card is probably approximately 50%. So you think about who's using the library. We are, our residents are, families, children. Family reading time is one of probably the biggest attractions every week. And we hear the complaints. There are issues, space limitations, maybe some quality limitations, but the library is really at the heart of the community when you think about it. People use the library. The printer doesn't work, you go down to the library. You need a book, you don't want to take Amazon, you go down to the library. If you don't have it, you can get an electronic version. And the discussion we've had, are we leaving a brick and mortar library? In some ways, yes. You can get books online. But you can't get programming, you can't get cooking classes, you can't get astronomy night, you can't get tea time. Those are the things that we're looking at to build on. The numbers, the funding, that's for you guys to work out, not me. But as we go forward, and Mike hit it on the point, we need to get there. We need to get it on the referendum so the citizens can vote. In my talks and interactions with the citizens, no one says, Steve, I want a library, but if it's over $10 million, forget it. I haven't heard that once. People are excited, the energy is there, and I think we're going to lose momentum if we don't get that out there. The word's been out there for several years now, well before COVID, and we're going to lose steam heading into the referendum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else? Well, it's the biggest issue for Maitland for some time in a generation.
I don't have my card filled out. Dale McDonald, 108 Angelo Court. We've got tens of millions of dollars of needs of infrastructure. And I'm being kind at tens of millions of dollars. Now, we've got a lot to consider. We want to think into the future. Because we have a future here that we want to protect. And frankly, I think I was the one that actually raised the possibility of a community facility when we talked about what the Civic Center future use could be. Now, the community facility is things of great value here that we have been blessed with an Independence Square. I mean, who would have figured? And an Independence Lane, a place to gather. Doesn't have to be Gooding's parking lot anymore. We've come a long way. And we got a long way to go. And it all costs money. And historically, we have been more than happy to ride on the backs of Mr. Clayton and the infrastructure that he put in the 1950s and 60s. Now we're wanting to go as far as we can with those things. But when our sewer lines and our water lines are so far behind reasonable age and condition, all because it's not easy. It's not something that feels good. A library is a consideration. It certainly is. I don't know, I can't honestly say that I don't know anybody that's moved to Maitland because of the library or didn't move to Maitland because of the library. We've got dynamic schools. We've got dynamic internal communities, but they still need to have toilets that flush and potable water that gets in there every day. So we've got a lot to consider. And it's not just about the next 15 years. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Anybody else like to address the council? Thank you.
I'm Bob Allen, 1651 Indian Dance Court. I'm also the chairperson for the Board of Trustees for the library. The mention has been going on for quite a while is the amount of dollars. And while I do understand that, I think that the people that I speak with, it is a yes or no. Do you want a new library or do you not want a new library? Everyone that I talk to, I won't say everyone, the largest majority of people I speak with do want a new library. So you're talking about the difference between $85 and $100 a year on your taxes is not even an issue. I think the issue is that we need to get behind the library. We need to be able to sell the concept, and we need to be able to come together and really promote it. It is important. Yes, the infrastructure needs to be taken care of. There are issues to be handled. But as far as the library goes, it is a cultural part of our community. It's something that we should cherish. It is something that's valuable to everyone. We need to support it. So let's not get hung up on $15 here and there per year, but rather, get behind the project and fund the whole thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. Anybody else like to address the council? Okay, let's close the public period. Thank you all for your comments. And back to further discussion here. I think we all are agreed where we're headed, and it's just how much we're going to ask to borrow on this. It's our task to figure out exactly what we need to go out, and I think we're all very excited about the prospect of the new library, but we have to be good stewards of the money and ask for what we think we need. So we all have principled views of what that is, and I respect all your views. I think we're going to get there tonight. I've told you what I thought my number was, and I'm happy to hear other people, everybody else's, on a particular number where we could end up on this. Like I said, I'm happy to.
So if we're bridging the gap, right, so just to set the, we've heard, I don't think we've heard anybody go above 15, right?
Right.
You're at 12.6. Is anyone below 12.6? What they would ask for?
I was mostly laughing at the hands in the crowd, or the hands in the crowd, but no. I mean, because in the spirit of compromising, my answer would be no. I certainly
Okay.
get it.
So we're bridging a gap between 12.6 and 15. Is that
Right, I think that's fair.
to frame an issue? Okay.
This is my favorite part where we just randomly pull numbers out of.
Well, I mean,
Well,
to be fair, that's really like, I know it sounds like we're arguing about a couple $1 million and like you could frame it that way, but I think it's just been, what we've been saying is where are we getting the 15 million number from? Like we can easily break down ours, but not to relitigate that, but it feels like if we split the difference or whatever, we're kind of doing the same thing, which is what I heard you.
I'm not trying to split a difference. I'm not trying to split a difference. I'm trying to frame an issue. So
I don't even think that it happened. I mean, listen, I think we say up to 15 million, so I think we go to the 15 million. Doesn't mean that we're gonna go get 15 million. Back to Lindsay's point, it might only be 12.6 million. So I think, and I think you heard it here a couple of times, you're gonna go, well, go once. So, I mean, we go for the 15, and in the language, we say up to 15, not to exceed 15, whatever it is, but I think 15 is the number, and I'm comfortable with that. And that being said, I'm gonna stick with that.
Okay.
I think, John, would you really, on your proposal, just so I'm clear too, would you specifically say 12.6, or would you actually, because there's rounding to get to 15,
Yeah.
would you actually round to get to 13, or
Yeah.
would you round to get to 12?
I would round it to 13.
So you would be at 13?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I mean, I'm not opposed to that either. I mean, I think we're all trying to get to the right scope. I completely agree, or not agree. I completely hear and think your logic is sound with what you all are saying. I don't see us holding back. I don't see it the way you all see it, which is that we're holding back money. I actually think in the converse, we're spending money we actually don't have, which is actually on the 0.8. We don't actually have 0.8 in the Park Trust Fund. We're speculating, and I think we are going to get around that money, but it's not in the bank.
So not to put the cart before the horse, but the language on the thing we're gonna vote for next actually says not to exceed X, 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 X dollars. So that would be the language itself. So if we can get to a number that feels good, you know,
And maybe the way to do it is through one or a series of motions.
But you are at 13 million is what I'm hearing.
Yes, I think 13 million will get us a new library, beautiful new library, and renovate our old library. And it's, as Mr. Randolph pointed out, you know, actually it's a $13 million cost, 30%. So that's.
I'm willing to agree to that number because looking at that top box there, 121, that tells me, you know, we can explain that to the residents and our taxpayers as $10 a month over 12 months. And I feel like that that itself is a nice round number to get to. $10 a month on a $500,000 home in our city. I'm also trying to bridge the gap, and I appreciate that John is giving us a number that I feel like is realistic and also gives us, since the word cushion is a little bit loaded, it gives, buffer is also loaded, it gives us comfort that if there are reasons that the project may cost more, even if we have built into the actual budget of the cost overrun, but it does also give us permission to do extra things. I mean, I'm just thinking back to, you know, to here. We had to come out of pocket to pay for the bathroom because we didn't originally have it budgeted. And before that, we were going to put a trellis on the back. And we didn't end up doing that because we couldn't afford it, because we were so close on numbers. And then we had to pay more to get the bathroom put in. So these are things that don't necessarily get contemplated at this early stage. And so it's not just that concrete is going to cost more or that labor is going to cost more. What if there's actually an amenity that we want that we haven't budgeted for, and it turns out it's something we really would like? Or maybe Stacy suddenly realizes, you know what, we need an extra kitchen or an extra multi-purpose room or
A charging station.
whatever it is, you know, whatever it is, but we don't know that yet. And so as much as we hate to speculate, I think it gives us some flexibility because we know that this is going to evolve as we are continuing to build it. And so I would like to have that cushion, which is a loaded word. I would like to have that cushion because I think having done enough of these things now, we usually end up needing a little bit more grace and latitude. So I'm willing to get on board with 13 million. 15 would be my wonderful ask, but 13 I think I could get comfortable with.
I think you make the point for 15 right there. I mean, we're just going up to 15. It's not saying we're going out and getting 15.
I think that, you know, Dan's pointed out that there's 4 lawyers up here. I'm the rare kind that actually is paid to argue in public and enjoys it so much and finds it to be a fun exercise and I enjoy my partners in that so much. But I do think that it's good when there's opposite opinions and people on extremes or on different sides of the spectrum, because it generally gets us to the best results for the people that we represent, who represent a bunch of different perspectives. And so I like 13. And I would say when I moved to Maitland from unincorporated Seminole County, where I did have a library but not a city library, and I would always go to the City of Maitland Library for story time with my children, but I couldn't check out books. And I was actually, when we moved across the line, it was the thing I was most excited about when moving to Maitland was to get my library card, and I did it the first day. So to some people, it really is one of the biggest draws, especially if there's a really nice new one.
Okay.
Well, I can do math.
Can you?
I can do math up to 5 and realize that there's 3 votes to support 13. So I mean, I do think that I think it was a good discussion, and I agree with some of the residents, though, like I said before. I don't think it's gonna come down to whether it's 13 or 15. I don't think that's gonna change the vote. And I think the reality of this, the 13 or 15, because we're gonna get going on the library. If the library costs a little bit more, it's just gonna pull from the money that goes to the old library. I think that's the reality of this. If we went for the 15, it would provide more ability to maybe make the existing library building something, but the reality is, if there's a cost increase, it's gonna pull from that project. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That's to me the reality.
I'll throw a motion out there for $15 million. So that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. And do we have a second for Mr. Guthrie's motion?
I don't think we were there yet, man, but here we go.
Yeah.
There we go. It's like playing craps. You gonna bet on me, or are you gonna go? Which way are you gonna go here?
With me or against me?
Somebody could second it, somebody could second the
Okay,
friendly amendment.
here's my problem. I really wanted, I think 15 is the right number, but the problem is I wanted to go to 13 because I would like all 5 of us to agree to vote on this together. And so I don't want to be voting with Vance here and agreeing to 15 million, and then there's 2 of you who are like, no, that wasn't my number. I think that in order, we are being told, let's move on, but also let's show support. I think a unanimous vote on this number is extremely important.
I agree with that.
Okay, I'll make a friendly amendment to 14.
So that's again, that's just picking up.
The 14 million.
All right, he's standing at 14. You never know what you might get.
I'll second.
There we go. Lori, would you please call the roll?
It doesn't include pickleball though.
No, we're not splash.
It doesn't include a splash pad.
Deal. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Guthrie and a second by Warzel, and we're going for the 14, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Councilmember Guthrie,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison,
Aye.
Councilmember Warzel,
Aye.
Councilmember Wild,
Aye.
Mayor Lau.
Aye. Okay. So do we, the next question may be what the rate is that what you're looking at?
I was looking at, just from a purely budgetary standpoint, as Stacy and Jerry and I are divvying things up for next year, where it's going to happen, is that going to be taking about setting aside 4.4 for the existing library, that will be taking the remainder of the city council capital, the form of ARPA money, the $4 million there, and then the remainder out of the CRA advance, just to stack everything up to get to that number that we need to get to. Not important. It's truly, I almost feel bad about asking the question because it's not critical for tonight. The money will be split up however it's split up. We have the funds available. So we could save that for a later conversation, but we are going to have to start, people will ask the question. We should have an answer for it.
I was just saying, would it be good to do this at the next meeting and kind of let everybody, if they have questions, call you or sit on and think about it? And
I would say yes, as long as we can get through the next item.
So
That's the critical
do
item.
you need to know what rate we're going out at? You know where?
No, well, we're gonna have to put that to the bond council financial advisor to see where we're gonna be at. But we've narrowed it down obviously to 1 of the 4, so it's gonna be within that column. We like to give them that flexibility to see where the market is, see where the most, we can get the most bang for the buck in the market at the time. So, you know, I can certainly ask those questions to see where we are right now, see if we can lock them in to get more specificity, because we're going to need that as far as the campaign goes, also the education campaign.
So you're asking where we're getting all the money from, right? And I think the answer, if, again, we're doing math on the fly, so this could be off, but the delta from where John was to where we ended up was about $1.5 million, which was the difference between really what you're looking at from dealing with the old library building, which we paid, I think, 4.5.
Yep.
I think the estimates that we got for it, we want to be fair and say, what were the estimates you got for dealing with the existing library? It was $4 million on the low end and $8 million on the top end. Splitting the middle, that's $6 million. I think if you add them up, if the delta between 4.5 and 6 is 1.5, and the difference between where we were at 12.6 versus 14 is 1.5, I think for all purposes, we're putting all the money into it. We're just, one way to frame it is that we're budgeting a different amount of money to deal with the existing library, but giving ourselves the ability to reallocate the money. That's one way to look at it.
And Parks Trust Fund off the table.
That's where we are now,
Okay.
under that math.
Okay. And the remainder flexible. We can work with that. Okay.
Fine, way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like what I can put with that.
I mean, I think that's sort of where we ended up, but
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, next item is the resolution that'll get us there.
Oh, sorry, I have lots of notes about lots of comments.
So,
Mark, would you please
sorry,
introduce the item?
didn't mean to preempt you there. Yeah, the next item on the agenda is discussion of the ballot language and the resolution adopting the ballot language. What I've provided to you in staff report and on this slide is the language from the statute about what is required to be included in the ballot language. So, and we've provided some sample ballot language for you. The key factors obviously are that you have to tell the voters what it's for, how much it is, there will be an interest rate attached to it, and what the term would be. And that is included in here with the amount which is X'd out being $14 million. The language bearing interest rate not to exceed the legal rate is the term that's typically used because we don't know what that rate's going to be when the bonds are issued or when the loan's taken. We put the 30-year term in to be the maximum to give flexibility in terms of what that final number would be. If it's less than that, if 20 or 25 is a better interest rate or a better term of the loan, then that's what we'd recommend. But we recommend to at least go out to the 30 years, which is really the maximum that our financial advisor and bond counsel are recommending. Then the last statement is also required that to be paid from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property, and then the question is for or against. So that meets the minimum requirements of the statute. Maximum 75-word limit, you're looking at 67 words on this proposed ballot language, so there is some flexibility there. Put this together just for discussion. There's no magic to it except for what is required by statute. So I talk about ballot language.
we have a public hearing on
It's under a decision item, yeah, so.
it. Public period, I should say.
Yeah, we do have public comment period. Okay, does anybody have any questions or more? On that? Okay, let's open a public comment period. Does anybody like to comment on the form of the resolution that would go to get this done?
This,
Yes.
can you put it in English, or does it have to be worded like that?
It's gonna be translated into Spanish.
Do people talk like that?
Well, I think, for the record,
Mike
Mike
Thomas.
Thomas.
I'm sorry, I'm quiet.
So, Mark, I think the answer is, some of this is just the way it has to look.
Yeah.
Like the second half of
The
that.
second half of it, yes. Yeah, the first few words to improve and enhance public services, that could drop out to just shall the city issue bonds to finance building and equipping a new public library, improving Gwynn Strong Park in the amount of, and the rest of it falls in line. So there are 1, 2, 3.
So you would start, you could
start
just start with shall the city
You could
issue
start with
bonds.
just shall, if you want to keep it simple.
That was one of the things I had suggested today to Mark, because I thought it was a little confusing and added words, so.
So you would strike the first.
I just thought it kind of made it more general when we're asking for something very specific.
Okay.
think I'll let the lawyers.
And anytime you strike out words.
I think we're in the public comment period here, so,
Oh, sorry.
thank you.
Hi, Nancy Adler, 381 West Trotters Drive. The question is, shall the city, and I would think that the two answers, one would be yes or no. Yes for bonds, or no, not for the bonds.
That's
Statute
straight from the
requires
statute.
four bonds.
It cannot say yes or no.
That's straight from the statute.
All right.
They don't have to know how to read or write, they just have to know how to get elected.
Thank you, Nancy.
He didn't mean that to anyone.
That's a particular disdain for
Wouldn't
Colorado.
smart
that.
Not us.
That is correct.
Does anybody else have a comment on this? Yes.
I'm trying to read it.
Hello.
Hi, Beth Anthony, 100 Tangela Court. Since you just voted on monies to be allocated to the renovation of the existing library, should that not be in this language as well?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
Since you just voted for the dollar amount, pardon me, to include 4.5 million for the existing library, should that language not be in the bond, this as well?
Okay. Is there anything else you want to comment on? I'll answer the question. Okay, that's, and we'll get to your answer, Ms. Maitland, in just 1 second. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment on the ballot line? Okay. Well, so Ms. Maitland's question was, should we also include the money that we would also be dedicated toward renovation of the old library? Is that correct, Ms. Maitland? Okay. And that was a consideration. I think we all thought about that and discussed it in an earlier meeting as well. I mean, and I've heard that from other folks as well. And I think for me personally, the idea was to kind of keep it cleaner and just to say, you know, to ask a single question for what people want to do. Do they want to build a new library or, you know, not build a new library? To ask too many questions. Do you want to build a new library and rehabilitate it for the purpose of, you know, that? So I guess the first question would be, yes, I want to build a new library. And then the next one goes into, and you want to rehabilitate the old library. And somebody might say, well, then why am I building a new library? You want me to build a new library and build an old library? I mean, and it might not be, it would be just very difficult to explain what you're trying to do. So you would really have to have, in my view, again, the way I thought about this was you'd have to have kind of a two-part question. It's like, do you want to build a new library and dedicate money also to preserving the old library for a particular use? And you have to explain the use. And we don't have a use yet. That's the issue is kind of, to me, again, I can't speak for everybody up here, but to me, the idea, we are pretty far down the road with A&H, I think, with being comfortable with wanting to move in there and us wanting them to move in there. But we haven't quite come to that. There's no lease on it yet. There's no terms about how that would look. And if we put that in a ballot language, it'd be ironclad to do it in a certain way. And so there's probably different opinions on why we did.
And John, isn't it fair too to say that at this point, it's expected that 100% of the 15 million is going to go toward, 14 million, sorry, is going to go towards, or 13 million. 100% of the 14 million is going to go towards the funding of the new library. And
It would have to, if this is worded this way.
Yeah.
So there's not an option, the money to do the rehab would have to come
Right.
from the existing funds, it's not voted debt millage.
So
it's illegal, impossibility.
Right, so for our purposes, for the story, 100% of the 14 million is going towards the construction of Woodstrong Park and the library.
Well, yeah, we're not really going out asking for that other 4 million. We already have that now. So I think we would just confuse people if we said, oh, we're going to do this and this. I think it'd be confusing. So like they said, keeping it clean would, you know, just, hey, do you want this or not?
We do want to make sure that the education materials are clear about that.
Right, what we're going to do.
Because we know it's important to people.
Yeah, but we don't know what we're going to do yet.
For the city, it's only 4 million, so that might be questioned as to all 5 million. That might be questioned from the city.
And I agree with.
Just saying that, because I completely understand the legality of it, you can't, you have to consider all that money going only to the library and Woodstrong Park.
Right.
I agree
How
with
it
Lori.
actually in the information as well.
I agree with Lori that we should, that taking out the to improve and enhance public services, starting with the question with shall.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Can we-
agree with Lori on that.
Anybody else from the public? No?
I thought you were.
We're closing it now, and then we're back up here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I closed it officially.
I think there's 5 lawyers up here, and I think I'm gonna sit back and let y'all
You'll
come up
definitely
with
be
it.
ready to sit for the bar at the end of this.
Yeah.
Okay, we're starting, I think the idea is shall and city.
Yes.
Yes.
Does anybody have any other?
My only other note, I don't know if there's a way to fix it or if this is a very, like, just to my brain thing, but I feel like to a person who didn't know everything we know and isn't as in the weeds, would it sound like that improving Quinn Strong Park, like, was a completely separate project?
Yes.
And would it help to add a word like, I don't know,
Situated
situated
within.
on or adjacent to, something that's indicating
Contained within.
in as few words as possible, understanding the need for that, that it's part of the same project?
I agree with that. I was going to bring that up because it almost allows for you to confound the issues and think, oh, we're building a library and fixing the park.
Since a lot of people don't know where Quinn Strong Park is.
Because really, all up until now we've talked about is building a new library. We really haven't actually talked about improving Quinn Strong Park. We've talked about building a library which happens to be located in Quinn Strong Park. So I agree with that tweak as well.
Okay, part of it, is that, I'm not sure that all the new library is in Queen Strong.
No, and it's not either, right?
So we got, then we have to explain that part of the senior center, and I get it, I mean, I think the project, you're right, they look like 2 separate projects. One thing you could do is to say, shall the city issue bonds to finance a project that would build and equip a new library and improve Quinn Strong Park. I mean, the project is the thing, it's a single project.
I like that wording better because I think we are approving. I think that's part of it.
I get nervous about that though. I think for the purposes of trying to make it as easy as possible on the library to explain what is being done, we are building a new library. Obviously, you're going to improve the site that you're building it on. But I mean, the most technically specific thing we're doing is building a library.
And to your point, you make it sound like it's 2 projects, and I tell you what, I bet you have a lot of people in Maitland, you would say Quinn Strong Park, like, where's that?
Well, I mean, and
So,
I see the point of
confusing.
including it so that we can, like, physically locate it geographically, so people are like, well, where are we putting the library? Well, this is where we're putting the library. So I get it, but I do almost take issue with how it's worded if we're not going to be more specific about what we're doing.
Do you need the exact words, Mark?
Do we have
The
to have-
exact words?
Yes.
Okay, at this meeting, you need the exact words.
They're due to the supervisor elections, so they can go out, and they have to be translated by December 12th.
Okay, so can someone,
So we have time.
We have enough time as you want to have a meeting.
so can we do it?
I'm sorry.
What do you say, Mark?
No, I was just going to ask Cliff from, because Quinn Strong Park is really the site that the library is on.
That's correct.
Or will be on. So if you were to build a library on a different site and you included parking, landscaping, stormwater retention, everything above, would that language be required? So my point is, does the Quinn Strong Park language need to be in there?
It doesn't need to be there except to the extent that voters would ask the question, where?
Yes.
And not know, and therefore vote against. So it's more of a practical consideration for voters, as is the thing we haven't discussed, which is in the original bond referendum we had for this building, the fire station and the police building and the public works building, we had with a not to exceed X percent mills, 0.25 or 0.5 or whatever the mills, which is not here either. I don't know how much voters understand what a mill is, or a half a mill or a quarter mill, but that is also not here. It didn't need to be here, but it could be. So the location answers a question that some voters may ask. Others may not. But you could also say, well, we'll solve that with our educational material. It's really up to you. From where I sit legally, if you tell them we're going to build a library and equip it, you said what you're going to do with the money, because everything else is the details of the parking and the landscaping and the traffic plan and all of that stuff.
So am I getting the gist that, Lori, you would want to replace, and I think you're, take out and improving and say to be located in? Is that-
What would you say, please?
I think any of those are options. I just thought the existing, I hadn't really come up with a great solution, which is that, but I think you could delete it entirely, and you could just say equipping a new library in the principal amount, or you could say on the existing, adjacent to the existing, you could say any of those things.
Well, here's another way to do it. Shall the city issue, I mean, in the sense of tying the two together with a single, you say, shall the city issue bonds to finance building and equipping a new public library and improving its site at Quinstrong Park?
On the Quinstrong Park site.
Well, I say its site, which modifies the library. So equipping a new public library and improving its site at Quinstrong Park. So then you've located the library and you've lived in the park too. And if you say you're improving its site, that would make sense. It's the same project. You're building a library and improving the site that it sits on.
I think all of those resolve the issue that I had. Everything else is just a, issue of how cumbersome is the wording or whatever. But I think it at least achieves what I was looking for, which is makes it clear that it's all the same project, not just like a random.
Right.
What do you like, Vance? What were you said something? Do you like its
Oh,
site, improving its site?
I don't even remember. I think maybe that was John.
I like John's first way, the project located, but we're getting punchy probably.
Yeah.
Someone change it. Motion.
I mean, it's not like this language is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how do we want to go about it? So there's a concern that if the way it sits there, it looks like two separate projects, and somebody might vote against it because they've got to be strong. So I've offered two ways to kind of tie them together, and I don't know if there's another way.
I'm ready to see if I can come up with something.
Well, you do like 6 words, so you have 14 words.
Try to be less. I think the question is improving. I think it's the only thing I thought, John, when you said its site is, do people think? Yeah.
The current library?
Yeah, that's the only thing. When I heard its site, I thought did it reference the existing site? That's what I.
Yeah, it's location.
Yeah, it's location at Quinstrong
That's
Park,
what I
and then
said
it's not
before,
in
but-
Quinstrong Park, it's at Quinstrong
I'm
Park.
also gonna be really picky and put word finance in the first one.
All right. So I think, what about, so it's equipping a new public library at the location, what'd you say, Mark? At the
Yeah,
location
I like what
of-
Mark said.
At,
The
I don't think
location
I
of-
don't think I can take credit for it, because I think John actually said it first, but, and improving its location at Quinstrong Park, so adding 3 words between improving and Quinstrong Park.
Is that your motion, Mike?
What? Say it again.
I thought something like that out earlier, and I don't think someone liked it, so before.
Yeah, I came up with the same. When I went through it, I just said, shall the city issue bonds to finance building, equipping and improving its location at Quinstrong Park in a principal amount, blah, blah, blah. It gets the location, it says at, not in, because that's accurate, and it takes out an and places it with a comma.
So you said finance, issue bonds
To finance building, equipping and improving its location at.
Well, you missed the
Where's the
new
library?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so issue bonds,
I'm focusing on the Quinstrong Park part.
to issue bonds to finance building,
To finance building.
you want to hear finance?
Equipping,
He's saying comma, equipping, take out and.
Equipping and
Improving.
improving a new public library.
at its location.
Yes.
At Quinstrong Park.
I don't think you're improving a new public library, you're building and equipping a new public library, you're improving the
To
park.
finance the building and equipping of a new public library.
Oh, I see what you're saying, John, because you're actually building and not improving. I see what you're saying.
Located at Queenstrong Park.
Right, so to finance building,
Building and equipping of
A new public library.
at,
I think what John's trying to capture is, I think what Cliff was trying to capture is the improvements part to Woodstrong Park.
yeah, I think it's.
So I think you do need to have, to finance the building and equipping of a new public library and improving, I think that's, we're going back to the one that I think we kicked in, improving its location at Woodstrong Park.
Yeah, I think that does, I think that captures the whole.
But all we're doing, and under that, under where, I think the only under where it stands here is we're adding more its, right? Or in the start.
Location.
Yeah, location, I mean, it's,
3 words.
It's location at.
we're adding the to before finance, that's right, Lindsay, that's what you want to
Finance
see.
the.
Finance the.
What are we, too many words now?
No.
No, we're still good. Finance the building and equipping.
But it's not, there's not a building there, we just take that building.
Oh, and also.
You're financing the building portion.
You could say finance the construction.
So
Well,
finance the construction. Look at Mark.
Yeah.
So smart.
It rained on Mark.
And does that cover equipping, so we don't need?
No, we need.
We have to put everything on too.
Okay. So to finance the construction and equipment, then you need to put the word of.
Yeah.
Of a new public, when you start the word then you need to get a new public library and improving its location at Queenstrong Park in the principal amount, not to exceed.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
And improving its location at.
Shall the city
Issue bonds to finance the
building,
Construction.
the construction and equipping
of a
of,
new public library and improving its location at Armstrong Park.
Yes. So much collaboration going on.
Okay, so,
you good with that, John?
yeah, say it one more time, please say, take it from issue bonds.
Okay. Issue bonds to finance the construction and equipping of a new public library and improving its location at Queenstrong Park in the principal amount not to exceed $14 million, bearing interest, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that works for me. I was happy with building, I'm happy with construction. Does that satisfy?
Yep.
All
Somebody want to make that motion down there?
I make a motion to approve the language that Cliff read out that we all fixed.
okay,
You just said you want to move to adopt resolution number 2023 to include referendum language for the 2024 general election ballot as presented by last clip.
Yes.
That's exactly what I
You
heard.
read my mind.
That's what I heard.
I'll second the
Exactly
motion.
what I said.
okay. We have a motion on the floor.
He seconded it. I seconded it.
Oh, Mark, okay,
I
motion
second.
second.
I second.
It's my really well reworded motion.
It's good.
Laura, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Hall Harrison,
Aye.
Councilmember Wurzel,
Aye.
Councilmember Wild,
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie,
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, we've gotten through the financing and the resolution language.
Can you toggle back
Toggle back to what?
to the first presentation?
I don't know. Can
I thought we were in Division 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Division
I?
0.
And,
Yeah, so I could probably do this.
Oh, I see.
okay, The last item for the evening, decision item anyway, is Vision Zero Action Plan.
You're welcome. Ready, Mayor?
Yes.
Just briefly, as the staff report says, we've been working with the MPO, Metro Plan, on Vision Zero Action Plan. They were the fortunate recipients of a federal grant to put together a Vision Zero Action Plan, basically straight Safe Streets for All grant. The concept is that obviously within the Orlando metro area, we are consistently top 10, usually top 1 for traffic fatalities in the metro area. What the MPO is attempting to do is to take a look at this problem on a regional scale, with them looking at it from a larger scale as the state road system that traverses the area. The counties will look at the county road systems within the region to create a action plan for those county roads, and the municipalities within the region will take a look at their local roads to create a Vision Zero action plan. The idea is that once we take a look at our hot spots in the city, that we will be able to put together some engineering plans, look at engineering solutions to reduce and ultimately eliminate traffic accidents and ultimately fatalities on the regional road system. We were potentially putting together, we've already started to talk to the internal committee, which consists of public works staff, police, fire, public relations, and administration, to move this forward. There's no cost to the city on this because of the grant that the MPO got. Our participation is strictly in-house. The one ask that they have is there be a citizen committee appointed to represent the residents of the municipality. What we've suggested is that we utilize our existing Planning and Zoning Commission and Transportation Advisory Board, since they are the two groups with the most knowledge of what's happening in the city. When you take a look at the individual makeup of those boards and their experience and what they do on a day-to-day basis, they seem to be a natural fit. That coupled with the fact that they're used to the organization of the city and the fact that they will ultimately be making recommendations to the city council. So they understand how our process works, versus trying to go and find a dozen people in the community that would have to be educated on how things work and how transportation works in the city and how development works and how our road system works. So sort of asking for what I'd like to do is ask for sort of a two-phase request. Number one, that we do participate in this. We're more than willing to. We've staffed up and got the right people in place from a staff perspective. And that you appoint the P&Z and TAB as the steering committee, which actually has a name, if I can pull it up here, the Vision Zero Working Group, to sort of steer it from a citizen's perspective. So.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any questions? Well, it sounds like a great plan. I mean, it sounds like, just something that is certainly we need here. And as we all know, this is, I alluded to earlier, we've got lots of hotspots right here that need attention, and I'm glad this opportunity's fallen into our lap, and we have the people on staff to deal with it. It sounds like the department heads are all for it. And I think the advisory groups, the Planning and Zoning Commission and Transportation Advisory Group, are well suited, as you say, to do it. So in this, I say we turn loose on this and let them go. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that we have these citizen groups for. So I'm excited about that. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this item? Seeing none, let's close the public period.
I would move to approve participation in the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan and designate the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Transportation Advisory Board as the city's Vision Zero Action Plan working group.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Laura, would you call the roll, please?
Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wiley.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Mayor Lo.
Aye. All right.
Thank you very much. And just to follow up, there, you will see a couple milestones in the process where the Vision Zero Action Plan team, consulting team from the MPO, coming to make the presentation, give you updates on status. So we'll schedule those for agendas as they become necessary. It's a pretty compressed time frame. We're looking to have everything done within the next 9 months, so things are going to happen fairly quickly.
Okay, great. All right, reports. Mr. City Attorney?
I'm happy to report that I have nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Mr. City Manager?
A couple things very quickly here. We have a Maitland Community Cleanup scheduled from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Saturday, November 18th for Lake Minnehaha and Nina. The meeting place for that will be at the community park at 9 o'clock, and then instructions will be given out there to anyone who wants to participate, and then they will go clean up those basins. Next thing, we have Movie and Park, 6 o'clock, Saturday, November 18th, in Independence Square. The movie is The Empire Strikes Back, the best of the series.
Whoa.
Agreed. Come on.
You need to clarify that that is being
Take a
represented
poll
of
on
the
that.
city.
That is basically the entire zeitgeist, so. And then we have to Get Down Downtown December 1st on Independence Lane. First two have been very well attended, so looks like we're getting some momentum there. December could be a iffy month, with everything going on between Thanksgiving and Christmas, but things are off to a very good start with the Get Downs this year. And of course, we have Season of Light, December 2nd, 5 to 8:30 at Lake Lily Park. So everybody should come out and see the festivities there. And as was mentioned a few times tonight, the park survey is hitting mailboxes. So they're going out to 4,500 residents of the city. If you don't get one of them in your mail, as the sampling, there will be an opportunity that we'll be posting to be able to participate online. So everyone that wants to will be able to participate. We're just trying to get the original sample in first, and then we'll be pushing out for anyone to take the survey online. So that's our plan. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, anybody have?
Real quick, went to my MAC meeting, the Metro Plan Advisory Commission. One of the bad news is that they are looking to start repaving the area of 1792 from Lee Road to Seminole County in the next year or two. So it's going to slow everybody down and be kind of a headache. They've also pushed back some projects. One of those projects is at Edgewater in Forest City. They're supposed to add like lanes and improve it, and that's been pushed back for another couple of years. One of the things that they chatted about that's kind of just a thought right now is they're working with Altamont to also do a bike path either over or under 434 and 436. So that would be a great connector for us. If I don't know which side it's going to be on, but they were just kind of just in the works, but it'd be something great for Maitland residents.
All right, well, thanks for serving on that committee.
It'd be great, I don't want to start discussion, it'd be great if when they repaved it, they could do something to help us get people across 1792 at Horatio.
Like walking?
Yeah.
Oh, already. So I haven't shared this with you.
Well, we can get, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, no, it's a project. I'm going to share it with you. One of the things I've been doing is I've talked to a whole bunch of people about this. I talked to Mr. Smith, the rep down in that district down there in Winter Springs, and I've talked to Anna here, our rep, and some others, but they're redoing the train rail across 1792, and because it doesn't meet code. So one of the things I'm trying to talk to them to do is to build a pedestrian bridge over that when they do it. So when I've talked to the FDOT and them also, so that's kind of in the works of what's going to be done. what they're also doing, Winter Park is also hooking up its bike trail. I talked to Phil Anderson about it. He's on board, and they're doing Denny. So you could ride your bike over or walk over, and then connect Denny and be part of their bike trail. So, and I've talked to Angie Gardner at Edenville also. So we're all on board with it. So I'll just keep y'all updated with what goes on next.
Okay, great, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Oh, yes.
For our March 19th, 2024 election, this is petition submittal week, followed by qualifying is November 27th through December 1st, so.
Right, so if nobody wants to run for mayor, now is the time.
I wasn't throwing the seat away.
I know, yeah.
I don't know anybody who wants the job.
Yeah, I don't know who wants to do that either.
Oh, great job to the Rotary for the art festival. It was great turnout, I thought. At least it seemed busy when I was there, and it was really well attended, I thought, and I appreciate so much that, you know, all the kids got to have art and presentations, and that was part of the fun, was going and seeing all the art. So just
Vendors everywhere.
vendors are, it's just such a special thing that we can have such a really well-attended event. I had friends who came from other parts of Central Florida who knew about it and said, hey, we're gonna be there, let's meet up, so.
The music entertainment was great.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
It was a great job by the Rotary, so congratulations to them.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a Scottish band out there. Let's see them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
They're really nice.
Wow.
Oh,
Really? Well, thank you all for what you do, especially the library issue tonight, and for all the effort and that everybody was put into that. Mark was put into that. Jerry, who did flee ultimately, and was there on the fire and did not take another moment of it. Okay. All right, we stand adjourned.